Everyone wants to leave a legacy of positivity in the world around them. Whether you are a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, a nonprofit executive director, or even a soon-to-be entrepreneur, one fact is always true. The easiest and most effective way to catalyze change in the world around you is through commerce and through business. But how do you do it? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Changemakers Collective, a place where people can come and get educated and encouraged and empowered to be the impact agent in the world around them. Brought to you by Silverback Ventures, Steph Thomas and Scott Woods have over 50 years combined experience helping companies and owners amplify the voice and multiply the impact of purpose-driven businesses. Join us each week as we discuss what it means to live a life of purpose on purpose.
All right, welcome back to the Changemakers Collective. I'm Scott, this is Steph.
Hello.
And today we're going to be spending some time talking about what it means to have a partnership in the community. What is an impact partner? What is a community partner? How do we talk about these things and how do we incorporate them into our personal lives and in our business lives? So when we're talking about collaboration, we spent a lot of time recently talking about collaboration leading to innovation, which leads to transformation. We will continue to say that over and over and over and over and over again. Collaboration is the only pathway forward to multiply your impact on a grand scale. So when we talk about a community of support, let's table that for the second part of our discussion here. Let's really talk about what it means to have an impact partner. Much like what we're sitting here today, as you may notice, we're sitting in a different space. This is a new impact partner of ours, Pure Hope. And we have our amazing producer, Kristen from Novice Studios. Say hi, Kristen.
Hi.
She had no idea we were going to do that. So we actually find ourselves in a space where we cannot move forward in a quick and efficient and impactful way unless we find people that can help us.
Okay, but let's really talk about that from us perspective. So we've been talking about a podcast for 3 years.
Yes, at least.
We've got studio equipment. We've got our scripts that we wrote.
Yes.
And we had zero movement toward it. And we just happened to be at a meeting with Nava Studios. That's what Kristen does. And she was like, let's go. And
yeah, what are you waiting for?
Right. Within 30 days, we started producing podcasts. So our impact partnership has created a benefit for Silverback Ventures.
Well, and the funny thing is, what was preventing us?
Us.
What was preventing us is that we didn't know what we were doing.
Right.
And we needed somebody to kind of, I was going to say, kick us in the butt.
It was
but
kick us
really
in the butt.
catalyze that change and say, okay, yeah, it's not as hard as you think it is.
Right.
My biggest concern, I bought all the studio equipment, I bought everything, and I was like,
What do
I don't know how to do any of the editing. I don't know how to do it on the producing side. And frankly, that's not our highest and best use.
Right.
And I think that's what it comes down to.
Scott, even as far as the website goes, I'm often, the first time someone says, hey, can you talk to us? I go straight to their website, and I don't mean...
You're almost always appalled.
Yeah. I don't mean to be that way, but
Yeah.
it's just a fact. Are you a legitimate business? What does your website look like? And I know when we first started, we were like, it was important to us to have a website so people knew that we were a legitimate business. And we met Scarlett's Web, and she took us from, pretending like we were going to do our own to, okay, this is how you do it. This is why you do it.
Yes.
This is when you do it. So impact partners are important.
Well, yeah. And how do you identify them? And I think when we talked originally about how do you fill your board, how do you create a community within your business for impact, one of the things we talked about is, okay, and even when we started our business, what do we not know how to do? How can we best go forward and have the greatest impact? Because again, and I hate to keep harping on it, but if we're truly about changing the world around us and being change makers, you have to be about it instead of talk about it. And we know we did not know how to build websites.
Right.
We know we don't know how to do podcasts.
Clearly.
So hence, Kristen's here.
Right.
We know that we are between our two backgrounds, your background being HR, my background being financial, both of our backgrounds being in small businesses and nonprofits and being on the executive side of both. We know a lot about a lot of things, but we also know where our expertise stops. So if you're in a business where you're producing services, you've got to know where you need gap fillers. How do we know, when do we know, and when we do know that we need somebody on an attorney side of things, we've got people we can call.
We have done a really good job, and we encourage people that we come in contact with. First of all, you don't know what you don't know. Second of all, who is in our sphere of influence and communication? Who is our community that we can run things by and they say, hey, if you do a podcast, or
almost like a personal board of directors.
There you go.
Right? Who is going to point you in a direction and go, well,
we're doing this.
You're a moron if you don't do that. You have a great podcast voice. Well, okay. It's just my voice. That's just how I sound. So, we have those conversations all the time, and being able to understand what you don't know, I think is so critically important for nonprofits, for small businesses especially, because very often they start to solve a problem. It becomes their idea. And as they continue to grow and grow and grow, you get to a point where you plateau. Mm-hmm. And you cannot go forward unless you have a catalytic event or a catalytic partner, an impact partner, come in and help you grow.
As we were developing Silverback, first of all, you don't know what you don't know, and then you don't know what to pay for what you don't know, right? So,
yes.
Okay, what is a good price? Is that price for me? What if I'm not ready to pay that price? Then what? So I think when we created Silverback and we created a channel partner feel, then we're kind of doing some of the work for people. But let's just say you don't have a Silverback in your back pocket, which you can always have a Silverback in your back pocket. But how do you vet people? How do you know that you're paying the right price? You're not overpriced. You're getting what you're paying for.
Well, and I think some of that is just really understanding the roles. You're building your company, you're building your nonprofit. You're going to have people that are going to go, man, your website is terrible. We love what you're doing. Your website is terrible. We love what you're doing, but your marketing's awful. Your messaging is bad. Understanding what role you need is the foundational question.
Okay, Scott, I love that you just said that, because how many conversations do we have where people just say, well, no one's ever told me that. Well, do you have the right people in your circle?
Yeah, you don't need...
Don't need cheerleaders.
No, and I always go back to, do you have... I want to go back. Now, this is going to date me. I want to go back to William Hung from American Idol and go, what? Who was telling him that he was the best singer of all time?
Yes, no one.
Who was telling him?
His mother.
And I said, both of my kids were in a praise band at our local school. And I'm like, I will be the first one to tell you, you're terrible. I don't want to be the parent that says, yes, get on American Idol and you get up there and you make a fool of yourself.
Right.
So it's the same thing. You have to have truth tellers in your corner. When you're building your team, building your board, building your support base, you have to have people in your community that are going to shoot it straight with you.
Right.
And you, as the owner, founder, director, whatever the case may be, have to be willing to hear.
Right.
I had a friend of mine say early on when we started the business, your biggest problem is going to be people that say they want to change, but actually don't want to change.
I think, and Scott, you and I run into that frequently. People will say, come in, help us out. And we'll say, hey, okay, your phone number is not on your website. You may want to add that. Well, this is why it's not. Well, okay. If you want to hear, we can help you.
Yeah.
But, if you have 12 people on your board and you are going to board meetings and you're asking your board, hey, okay, What do we need to do next? And you have a subject matter expert and they are the last person you ask the question. Well, it's not the board's problem.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a listening problem.
Yeah, so let's go back and talk about how to pick those impact partners. Understanding where your gaps are is primarily number one.
Yeah.
Number two is what drives your business forward.
Oh, that's good.
Often from a financial viewpoint, all business owners know from their CPA that they have to have a P&L and a balance sheet. Okay. The vast majority don't, and I don't mean this to be a disparaging remark, but don't necessarily care what it says.
That is true.
They want to say, okay, if I need to make X number of widgets to stay alive, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to focus 100% of my energy there. Understanding what drives your business forward helps you understand where you're missing things. So if you're not growing, you need to understand what is pushing your business forward.
But Scott, that goes back to a previous podcast where we were talking about you have to be working on your business, in your business.
Mm-hmm.
You have to vision cast. You have to have listening ears. You have to have, if you're a for-profit, then, how are you scaling your business? Who's in your area that's already doing what you're doing more successfully? Can you share concepts?
Oh my goodness. Yes. Right. Because we talked about collaboration,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the nonprofit world, the impact world. Now, as we transition into 2025 and further on, more and more companies are understanding how to, and hopefully they're listening, how to make impact in the community part of their everyday nomenclature and everyday planning. But previously in the nonprofit world, everybody was holding tightly to their idea.
Their
and what
piece
was happening,
of the pie.
Yeah, and they kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and you can't grow. In order to grow, you have to collaborate, and understanding where your gaps are and who's doing it well. We happen to be in a space where we're providing strategic advisory services to small and mid-sized businesses and nonprofits. There are companies that do aspects of our business very well. Well, it would be stupid of us not to bring them in and have them help us.
Right. Well, Scott, that's a real thing, right? So people do what we do.
Yeah.
If they're more successful in areas, how are you doing it? And don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
How are you doing that? But on the flip side, we're doing things better than other people.
Correct.
And we share our information. The world is too big. Our piece of the pie is just our piece of the pie.
Well, and I think we're going to be talking about that in a future episode about what our competitive advantages are, how to define them, how to incorporate them in their business. But we don't want to, as we build a community of impact, we don't want to pigeonhole ourselves so narrowly that we can't grow, that we're stunted. We have to be able to say, we don't know anything or enough about website design. We don't know enough about legal things. We can do contracts all day long, but when it gets to be deeper in the weeds, we have a person to call. We don't know about taxes. The tax law changes all the time. I don't want to give people tax advice and then turn around and say, oh yeah, by the way, that law changed 5 years ago.
Right. No, that's why we have an impact partner who says, we say, this person can help you. That's not our cup of tea.
And I think what's important about creating an impact partnership, and we made a conscious decision at Silverback to not have that be a financial relationship.
Right.
We don't get paid by our impact partners.
Right. But that doesn't mean other people can't set up an agreement.
But I think it's important to recognize that we value your expertise and we're going to refer people to you. And our expectation is you're going to pick up the phone and you're going to treat them like they're the best client you ever had.
You said something and I thought you were going in a different direction. So 2 parts of that. If we have a relationship, I would 100%. If someone was doing a podcast, I would say Nava Studios, let me get you in contact.
Yeah, it's the only person we're going to refer. Yep.
But I also know that when I refer them, Kristen is immediately going to pick up the phone and treat them like she's been a partner with them forever. Yes. On the flip side, she's also going to say, hey, by the way, if you're scaling your business or you need some
Yes.
leadership development,
Yes.
Silverback Ventures, let me get you in contact with them. And we're going to treat them like they were friends.
That's the community of impact. We have a shared system of values. We have a shared desire to create impact. We're not going to refer people to channel partners that are just like, all right, well, I'm just going to bill this person $400 an hour and call it a day. We want people in our network to share our values for impact. And I think as our listeners kind of grow their impact partnerships and people that are going to be force multipliers to help them scale, you have to have a foundation of a common vision for what the future looks like.
You know, it's also important that you are communicating with people that do the same business as you, because people's values are different. We are aligning ourselves with people that are making an impact in the community. Someone may do exactly what they're doing, but their focus is government contracts, or their focus may be only women-owned businesses.
Yep.
So I would say, hey, okay, you may not be a right fit for us because our values don't line up, but you would be a good fit for. And so I would
Queen City Women
refer
in Business.
people that would theoretically be our competitors, but we're a part of the same community.
We have to be able to do what we do in the most effective and efficient manner possible. Both of us share a desire for efficiency. It makes us both crazy. That's kind of how we met. It makes us both crazy when people are just slogging along when they could be doing so much more. The only way to do that on a grand scale is to collaborate and innovate and come up with new ways to attack the same problem. There's no other way.
Absolutely.
And the same is true for us individually. When I said building a network of your personal board of directors, because we can't be effective for our clients unless we're growing individually and collectively as Silverback Ventures. We have to have a community around us that we can go and say, yeah, I don't really know how to attack this problem.
And again, to be in that position, you have to have a willingness to listen, to partner, to give as much as you receive.
Yeah.
It's important. And I think that sometimes as we are trying to get the next contract or scale businesses or just be effective in building our widget, that we forget to listen to the people around us.
Yeah, it's so easy for the inertia of the everyday to drown out where you're actually trying to accomplish. You have to have those. You have to have those people in your life that are going to call you out and say, "Yo, you're drifting. What are you doing?
What does that look like?"
But you also have to constantly, as an organization, remind yourself of where we're trying to get. That Mount Everest, you have to understand where you're going and what impact you're trying to have. So we have a community around us where we can say, hey, we're members of the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits. We're members of Together South Carolina. Mm-hmm. We're members of Queen City Women in Business. We are members of organizations that can poke us in the eye.
Right.
If we're not being effective, and also be a resource for us if we run into stuff we're like, I have no idea how we're going to attack this problem.
One of the things that you brought up, the Queen City Women of Business, they did this cool pitch pal thing, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I thought we had a pitch down until I tried to do a 30-second pitch. Okay, that was a huge poke in the eye that if I didn't, if we were not partners with other people, I would have thought my pitch was great.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly right. That is exactly right.
Now, my pitch wasn't terrible, but I had an audience that said, hey, you stink today. And I was okay with it.
Yes. Well, and again, you're building that network of people that can come around you, support you, lift you up, provide resources. Our desire is to educate, empower, and enable people to create lasting change in their community. That's a tagline, but that is who we are.
That's a true thing.
That's who we are. And we're not going to deviate from that. That's just our nature. Mm-hmm. But we can't educate people if we're not being educated.
Absolutely.
We can't empower people if we're not being empowered. If you show up for your business in I'm exhausted, burnout, and I don't know how to go forward, and now you're trying to encourage your teammates and encourage your organization to grow, it's not going to work well.
Scott, both of us together, but individually, have people that are more successful in their business or are doing what we want, who reminds us, hey, this may not be working. Or, hey, you all are knocking it out of the park in this area. How are you packaging that?
Yeah.
How are you sharing that with others in your area? And again, if we are the smartest people in the room, then we're probably not able to hear where our gaps are.
We're in the wrong room. And trying to really, if we're about living a life of purpose, on purpose, we have to know, one, what that purpose is, and we have to surround ourselves with people that are going to call us out. And part of the things that we coach new entrepreneurs on is you need to tell your story over and over and over and over and over and over again. Some of that is to convince you that what you have is something worth selling.
Right.
Because a lot of people will come up with an idea and say, oh yeah, I can make all kinds of money doing this. And the minute they start explaining it to people like us that have listening ears, or go, that's not a real business.
Right. It's a hobby.
Yeah. How are you going to ever do this more than just on the corner? Like, I was just looking at one the other day that was like, I have a business that reviews books. Okay. How are you going to make any money doing that?
Right.
This is something you just love to do.
So as we wrap up, and we are talking about living a purpose of purpose on purpose, being a part of a community is important. Being a impact partner and having a relationship with other people that can help you bridge the gap.
Yes, come on. You have to have people in your circle of influence that are not only going to be recipients of what you're trying to sell, but also be able to pour into you.
Absolutely.
Because if you're pouring from an empty cup, you're not going to give the community the best. Yeah, you just can't. You cannot. You cannot go forward in a positive way.
Right.
I think the takeaway, you got to have partners that are going to help you fill gaps, especially when you're starting out.
Yes.
Fill gaps. Your board should fill gaps. Your channel partners should fill gaps. Your community should not only be recipients of your message, but also be filling into you.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have that, one, call us.
Silverback.
Secondly,
Ventures.
find people that are doing what you want to do well and connect with them.
Ask the questions.
Connect with them. Good grief. Most people want to share what they have.
Right.
And if they don't, you don't want to be partners with them anyway.
Right.
So until next time, live a life of purpose on purpose.
Thank you for listening to the Changemakers Collective. If you've enjoyed this episode, please help us grow our community by leaving us a review on Apple Podcast or rating us on Spotify.
You can also find our podcast on YouTube, so you can come and leave us a comment over there as well. If you want support growing your business and scaling your vision, visit us at silverbackventures.org or connect with us on LinkedIn.
Thanks again, and we'll see you on our next episode.